Yep.
Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Peter Llewellyn. I run the MedComms networking community activity. You'll find it at medcommsnetworking.com. And part of that activity is going out and telling people about MedComms and encouraging people to join us. MedComms is always looking for new talented individuals. And I've developed a specific resource at FirstMedCommsJob.com with lots of insights into the business, articles, videos, audio, and so on. We run a series of meetings. We've got careers guides. The meetings in particular are very good, even if I say so myself. And if you can get to the meetings, it's really worthwhile. You meet a lot of MedComms people face to face. It's a great opportunity to chat about the business and get insight into how the different agencies work. However, we can't get everybody to all the meetings for lots of reasons. And I'm trying now, I started at the end of last year, I'm trying to do more of these Zoom meetings. So we're using sort of the virtual environment to reach out to more people and engage with more people. So just more people can join in and get more information about everything that goes on in MedComms. So today, I'm absolutely delighted that we've been joined by the team from inScience Communications. And what we're going to do is we'll have a short presentation and they'll introduce themselves, and then we're going to have a Q&A session and we'll answer some of the questions from the audience. So on that note, if everyone's happy, I'm going to hand it over to Michelle to kick us off with the presentation. Thanks, Michelle.
Hi everybody. Thanks, Peter. Thanks everyone for joining. So we have a few slides just to set the scene and just to show you where we are in terms of our business and everything like that. And Andrew's going to talk about inScience Communications a bit more. Then individually, we're going to introduce ourselves in more detail with our sort of biog slides and talk about how we came to become in medical communications. So the first few slides are mine. This is just to show you where we fit in the wider organisation. So Springer Nature, hopefully most of you have heard of this company. It's one of the biggest publishers in the world. It's Springer Nature was created a couple of years ago when Springer merged with Macmillan. We are part of this company. We're part of Springer Healthcare. So Springer Healthcare is a division within Springer Nature, and it's separated off from the other parts of the business. And then inScience Communications effectively is just a brand name within Springer Healthcare. And inScience Communications is the global medical communications division of Springer Healthcare. So we're a leading global scientific publisher, one of the largest in the world. And the next slide, the company as a whole works in various fields: academia, scientific institutions, and corporate R&D departments. In fact, Macmillan published some children's books, which I read to my 4-year-old son at night. So that's quite nice to see the logo on the bottom of some very good stories coming out of our London office. The last slide, really just to give you a flavour. These numbers are from 2017, but not much has really changed since then. 13,000 plus employees worldwide, over 50 countries. So this just shows you how big we are as a Springer Nature group. And really the point of showing you this slide, and we show this slide to our clients as well, is to just get the point of very big and secure and stable. And the other really interesting thing for employees is that this does give you quite a wide range of opportunities to grow your career. So this goes both ways. We have quite a few examples of people who have come to work for medical communications for us from other areas of the business, such as the books division or the journals division, for example. And actually, Sam later on will tell you her personal story about that. But also the other way around, if you're working in MedComms and you fancy a change, or you wanted to go to a different country, for example, there's potentially the opportunity to move sideways within the company itself. Which has great benefits for lots of reasons, and it gives an extra sort of addition to a variety of life, keep you interested. That's really setting the scene of where inScience fits within Springer Nature. I'll hand over to Andrew now, who's going to talk a bit more about inScience Communications in specific.
Excellent. Thanks, Michelle. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. My name's Andrew Thomson. I'll tell you a little bit about myself afterwards, after I've told you about inScience Communications. So Michelle set the picture as to our overall parent companies, Springer Healthcare, and beyond that, Springer Nature, major publishing group. So inScience Communications, and this is a sort of work that all of the panelists you see on the on your screen, this is the sort of work that we do each day. So going back to Michelle talking about global company, we have a global reach, but we also have local market expertise. So we have inScience offices across the globe, North America, mainly in the UK as well, down in New Zealand, where we've been established for a long, long time, and recently now out in Asia, in Tokyo. So our most recent office opened last year in Knutsford, and not far away from us in Chester. And we also have a big group based down in London. As well as the global MedComms that we look after, we have local market offices. These essentially look after local MedComms. So the likes of Michelle, myself, we don't necessarily get involved in these, but sometimes we do. And we know our colleagues in Madrid and Mexico and so on. Often they just deal with local publications in local language. So that's not something that we tend to support a lot. So our background, essentially, I just want to affirm that we are probably one of the most established medical communication companies around. We started in 1982, and there are very few other ones that have been that have that longevity. We have about 100 full-time staff across the globe working with the company, and many of those have formal membership of ISMAP, so they have the certificate of medical publication professional. That shows evidence of competency in medical publication. We employ staff with a whole variety of degrees, and even those that don't have degrees. We employ people so that they're the right fit for the jobs that we're after. So some questions might come up on what are essential degrees and so on. That's difficult to answer. We do like those, but there are some, we have many colleagues that have higher degrees and some that's first degrees. So we have a variety in there. A lot of people come from different specialist areas, and we're also looking at continually developing and training our staff, because this is a rapidly changing market, rapidly changing business, and we have to keep up with training and making sure that everyone catches up with the changes in the industry, because the pharmaceutical industry itself is evolving, and we see that every day. Just to give you a rough guide, this is our scientific services career path. I'm in the scientific services department. Some people might call it editorial. So scientific services. Michelle is in client services, and she has a very similar careers path. But it just helps just to show one example here. So if you look on the left-hand side, this is a typical path of writers who maybe start in the industry at the associate medical writer level, and actually there is a career progression through to medical writer, senior medical writer. Then there is an option to take on management roles, and then in our department the highest level is scientific services director. One thing to note in the orange panel on the right hand side is we actually have a medical information group which we started up a couple of years ago, and that's been very successful, and we run that group slightly separately to the MedComms group, although we all sit in the same building, and that's been a new initiative that we've started, and there may be some questions that people wish to ask about that, and we'd be happy to answer. This is a busy slide, but what I really just want to focus on are the green headings at the top. That people new into the industry might just think we just do medical writing. That's still an essential part of our work, but we do a whole host of other things: meeting activities, publication planning, business intelligence. We have a health outcomes group, and so on. So what I want you to take home from this slide is the fact that we can support a variety of things, and we need a variety of people to help with these things. So no one gets stuck just doing medical writing. If they want to do medical writing alone, that's absolutely fine. But there are plenty of opportunities out there to specialize in other fields and get other experience. So who are we? As I mentioned before, I'm Scientific Services Director. I come from a different generation. My grey hair probably tells you that, but when I started off in MedComms at that time was an industry people went into after having another career, and that was very typical. Nowadays, that's completely changed. It's often the first choice for people leaving university or whatever, that they get into MedComms, and that's a really good thing. And we're seeing more and more of that these days. So as you can see from that slide, I worked a lot in the pharma industry, and I've been 19 years now in the MedComms business. I'm still learning, I have to say. So if I pass now on to Michelle.
Hi. Yeah, so Michelle Turner, Client Services Director for the UK. You can see that picture's quite old. Well, it's 5 years old, so I need a new one. But you can read the slide there for yourself. What I'm going to just talk about is different to what's on the slide. So I did 8 years of work in different industries before I fell into MedComms rather accidentally. As Andrew, I think, was saying, I think this used to be the normal way that people would find MedComms. It wasn't something that was really, you know, your teacher would come and talk to you about your career options, and MedComms wasn't talked about. So thanks to people like Peter and all of us trying to raise awareness of this industry, because it really is a very good place to work, and it's a great career opportunity. It's a career for life. I mean, I found an advert basically in the Guardian one day, and I was looking for a change, and just thought, well, I could do that. As a list of skills, I can do that. That's great. Went for the job. They loved me, and I've been in the industry for this is my 19th year. I've worked at this company for 14 years, which just, I think, tells you how great a company it is to work for. And the reason it's great is because of people that work here. And hopefully you're going to get that impression from us from today. It's why you have a mixture of people talking to you. We wanted to show you really that the working in MedComms is really exciting and really interesting, and there's a variety of things you can do, but also it's the people that work here are just really excellent people to work with, and we all get along famously, and we work together to try and build the company and make things better and improve things and everything else, and everyone has ideas that chip into the strategy for the company and driving it forwards. So in terms of why I fit, I mean, my natural skill sets and personality just fit MedComms really well. I'm someone who I'm like to organise things, deal with numbers, work with people, get out there and do exciting things. And I'm also bored quite quickly, and I can honestly say I have not been bored for one single day in my 18 years of working in MedComms, and for me that is something really special, and I will never leave this industry, I don't think, unless I can afford to just stop working altogether. But you'll see I have a variety of background. The one important thing to mention actually to you guys, you will notice I don't have an official degree of any kind. I don't have any science background whatsoever, and yet I'm the commercial lead for the UK of this business. And that really, from the client services side in particular, we don't employ people based on the pieces of paper that you have from education. It's great that you have the pieces of paper from education, you've been through that, and that it's important for you as a kind of learning experience. Who's that phone? But we employ people based on your attitude and your skill set, and generally whether you can do the job or not. For client services, it's, can you multitask? Can you be proactive? Can you work as a team? Do you enjoy working as a team? Do you enjoy being challenged on a daily basis? Is that something that really makes you feel happy? It makes me feel happy. Most of my team, I think all of my team, that's what really makes them feel happy, and that's why they belong here, and that's why they got the jobs, and that's why hopefully they'll stay for a very long time. So that's me really. Thanks, Andrew. I'll go on mute.
Oh, I think my slide's gone there, Andrew. Oh, great. So I'm Sam Blakemore. I'm an associate medical writer. I only started in April last year, so I've been here for about 9 months. And before that, I actually was employed by Springer Healthcare in the same building as this, but as a digital project coordinator. So it was quite different. It was more website development and things like that for scientific products and things like that. So I think it was a really good way of getting into the whole scientific publishing kind of sphere and to start learning really more about MedComms, because in my degree, which as you can see from the slide, was not specifically a medical degree, it was in zoology. I also don't have a PhD, I have a master's. So that's, if you think that maybe to be a medical writer you need a PhD, that's not necessarily true. So I started learning about what medical writing was, and I realised that was something I really, I knew that I would want to do that because I loved writing. I didn't particularly like the lab side of my degree, and I always preferred the writing of manuscripts. So I just knew that that was what I wanted to do. So you can see on the slide as well the various different things that I do in my role. It's not just manuscript writing. Get the opportunity to get involved with the development of abstracts, posters. I went on my first on-site client meeting last year, and it was just very varied. I got to do lots of different work. I got to write it up and meeting the clients. So yeah, that was a really good opportunity, and it was lots of different opportunities to grow. And as I said, not just the writing side of it. So yeah, that's me.
Okay, so I'm Ella Palmer. I'm a senior medical writer at inScience, and if I just skip down to the second part of the second bullet points, and how I got into medical writing. So I was in academic research, similarly to Andrew, for quite a few years. I did enjoy it, but I did research other career paths, and I did come across medical writing. I wasn't quite ready to make the jump, and I was actually approached during one of my postdocs by Springer, in fact, to ask if I wanted to edit a book on my PhD subject. I do have a PhD, so if I say that, which I did, and that gave me the board to jump off and take up an intern position at Dianthus Medical, which I did for 3 months, and then from there I got a job at another agency. I was there for 3 years. I actually started I jumped straight in as a medical writer, which is quite unusual, I think, probably because of my previous editing experience. And yeah, I would like to say I actually wish I had started as an associate medical writer, because I feel I would have got a better grounding, which I have gained as I've gone along, but to get the real basics from the start would have been good. I feel like I've caught up now. And then from my previous agency, I moved to inScience, where I became a senior medical writer. And yeah, it's just been great. So in both my agency roles, I've been exposed to loads of different types of work. You can see here, yeah, abstracts, posters, manuscripts, yeah, training slide decks, more PowerPoint-based, crawl claim dossiers and global response documents in a combined effort with the medical info team that Michelle and Andrew talked about earlier. And as you can see here, I've now worked on quite a few different therapy areas. So yeah, I'm continuing to learn as I go along. And that's me. Yes, and if you have any questions, then please don't hesitate to contact us. That's our email contact address there. Please contact Rachel. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thanks, guys. If I can jump in. Andrew, if you can lose those slides. That was a great introduction. Thank you very much, everybody. And what I would now do is certainly invite the audience to ping us some questions. Just in case anybody missed it earlier on, you should have two ways of talking to us, as it were. You've got, if you look at the bottom of the screen, you've got a chat button and a Q&A button. So use either of those text boxes to text some questions in. Can I just ask one question to kick it off? You've talked about it being a global company, and obviously this sort of a webinar, although there's, I don't know exactly where everyone's come from, that's the truth, but we're going to be a little bit UK focused here today. You're all based in the UK, but just give us a flavour for, you know, the opportunities if someone comes and joins inScience, how much opportunity there is to move internationally to the sort of global offices. Who should I ask? Andrew, go on.
So we've had experience of writers in the past coming and going from New Zealand, because that was our main office setup at one time. We were UK, New Zealand, so there was that swap over. We do have a colleague who's off in the US at the moment. She worked with our UK team, and she's working in Philadelphia. So I would say the opportunity is there. It's maybe infrequent that we do that. A lot of it depends on people's circumstances and so on, and family life. But yeah, it's certainly open for that opportunity.
Okay, so the opportunity to move around, and also one thing that's worth emphasising, although we assume everyone knows that, I guess, is that this is a global job. So, you know, travel is a big part of the work anyway.
Oh yeah.
Okay, but let's just pick up. So we're starting to get questions coming in. So let's just pick up on a couple, and if I can pick up on Jennifer's from Ireland, just to explore this for a moment. She's saying, I live in Ireland, might there be opportunities for me? I think what she's basically saying, might there be opportunities for me in Ireland? Just talk a little bit about, you know, what your expectations are. If someone's going to join you as an entry level, how flexible can you be in terms of where they are based?
So as an entry-level medical writer, we would wish them to be based in the office, because there's so many aspects of their training and so on that we need to do face-to-face and so on. So we are definitely looking at office-based associate medical writers. So
and generally that's across the industry. And I think it's one of the questions we get asked a lot at the moment is, how flexible can it be? Can I work from wherever I am? Can I work part-time, etc.? Most people, in most of the agencies would be saying, we want them in the office, we want them full-time, and that would be the position with you. Yeah?
Absolutely. To start off with, they need that grounding and the full education that we can provide, and the support. You know, let's not forget about that.
And that's writing and account management, Michelle. On your side as well, that's the same. Yeah?
Yes, absolutely. And the reason why what we do works so well, one of the reasons why what we do work so well is because we work together closely as a team. And as Andrew said, that the support of your colleagues is really, you do the most learning while being around everybody else. You can't really do that when you're new. Certainly my entry level position is a project coordinator. That's the one I have for people who have no experience in MedComms whatsoever, and that would be in the office all the time. Yeah. I mean, it's for your own benefit as well. You won't learn as quickly, and you won't feel a part of the team, I don't think, without having that initial, you know, a year, 2 years, whatever, around people, you know.
Yeah, sorry, Michelle.
That's okay.
Yeah, I mean, as an example, we did have a colleague who we recruited last year from Scotland. She came down. She's been with us just under a year now, and she's working in the London office. And she, you know, moved down to London for that opportunity, and she's made a great start to her career. So, and she really enjoys the environment that, you know, gives her that support.
Okay, so and a couple of questions. I must admit, there's quite a few questions coming.
There are, yeah.
So, just trying to follow that a little bit. You know, I think Michelle, you sort of say a year or two. I think we'd probably all go a year or two. You know, of entry level sort of office training. it sort of stands you in good
I
stead.
mean, everyone's an individual. Obviously,
Exactly.
everyone progresses at different rates, and it doesn't mean that there's not flexibility in there as well. A lot of our teams have, different starting times and going home times, whatever, depending on their personal circumstances. But it's just, getting up to speed on the accounts, making relationships with the clients and the team, and learning. The best way of doing that is, especially when you're new, is with your colleagues. Face to face.
And so, but then pressing on from there, one of the exciting parts or aspects of this sort of business is once you've got that grounding, actually there's a lot of flexibility.
Yeah.
And I'm sort of guessing, but just talk to this for a moment. You people can work flexibly. They can take their computer home and work at home. They're going to be traveling anyway.
Yeah.
Do you have people working part-time? Do you have people working remotely? How, is that that's just the way it all works these days once you've had your training?
Yeah, we have a formal process, I think, as every company will do, for flexible working, which includes your part-time hours or different hours and working from home. Basically, there's a process. Every individual will be looked at individually. We have to think about the business, obviously, the colleagues that they're working with, making sure the clients are well looked after. What we try to make sure is that nobody is individually responsible for anything on their own, and therefore they're working as a team of people. So we have to make sure the business is covered and the colleagues are not left. If somebody decides they want to work 3 days a week, whatever, is that viable? Are they going to leave somebody else with an extra workload, that kind of thing, in which case we can't really do it. So there is lots of flexibility. There's lots of travel involved with the business itself. Everyone has a laptop and a so that's useful. But yeah, flexible working is there, but on an individual basis, looking at the business needs as well.
Okay, so let's start at the beginning, and let's take writing and account management slightly separately. Let's just take writing for a moment. So if somebody's looking to apply to be an associate, or where do you start with an associate medical writer, an entry-level medical writer position at inScience? What's the sort of, just briefly, what's the sort of process they're going to go through? Is there testing, there's assessment days? How's that sort of process work?
Sure. So essentially, there'll be a job advert that goes out from the company that we will advertise the position. But having said that, we're also interested in people who wish to send speculative applications. What I would say is, please include a good CV, a good resume, and a good cover letter why you want to do it. And if I'm going to give anyone a tip for doing that, pay attention to the detail, because we are detailed people when it comes to writing. It has to look good and read well. So if it doesn't do that, I'm afraid it goes off the desk fairly quickly. So please pay attention and spend time doing that. If that's successful, and we look through those and this is an interesting person, we will send out a writing test and ask people to do that. Again, we'll tell you roughly how much time to spend on that, and that is meant as a guide. If it's not a race, if you can do it in half the time, that doesn't, that might be of benefit, but actually if the quality is not good, we will take that into account. So we're looking for quality all the time. That's paramount. And then if that's successful, we'll have an interview and we'll take it from there. So that's the process that we tend to run.
Okay, and just briefly, can you give them a feel for what sort of writing tests they might be facing?
They're usually quite simple. I mean, Sam, I think you probably did the last writing test without telling them exactly what it is.
The answers.
How did you feel about that?
I found it wasn't too challenging. I think it was a case of maybe looking at examples of similar things that will help you get a feel for the writing style. If you're already in sort of medical education in academia, you might have a lot of exposure to manuscripts anyway, so that will stand you in good stead for the writing test. I'm very conscious of not giving away what the writing test is, though.
No, I mean, it's
but the nature of it.
Yeah, the nature is you're given some data to interpret, and how would you format that? What's the best way to present it? So it's looking for people to put their personality on, right, how do I communicate what's written down in paper into a different a different format, and so on. So it's just looking for that spark of creativity as well as accuracy. That's what we're certainly looking at.
Okay.
And attention to detail.
And
Attention to detail.
It's always attention to detail. I think that's the thing that we can't emphasize enough.
Absolutely. If anyone goes away with a message, that's the one that they should have.
Leaving time to read through it again is probably one of the most important things, if not once and twice.
Yeah. I must say, my sort of simplistic advice to people is that the agencies don't tend to try and catch them out. You know,
We're not doing that at all. No.
So read what you're given, and you should have the information to do what you need to do. But then follow that brief, as it were. Yeah, that's really important. And then double check, triple check that what you've done when it goes back is correct, sort of thing. And just sticking with the writers for a moment, a couple of questions coming about training for the entry-level writers. What sort of gives a sense again of, you come into a very formalised training scheme? Is it very hands-on, learn as you go sort of thing? Just gives a sense for that first sort of stage. Andrew, again, I guess is the... Yeah,
sure. So if anyone wants to jump in, given your experience, but we tend to mix up very much hands-on experience, so on-the-job experience, that you usually work with a more senior colleague who will guide and mentor you through specific tasks, but also backing that up, we do have like an educational program. We have a curriculum of certain things that writers will need to know. There might be some tools in terms of PowerPoint or EndNote, which is like a reference manager, those sort of things to help them doing their daily job. So we don't teach them the theory and then put them out in practice. There's a bit of both. We juggle the two because that's where the learning occurs. And they're always managed. They have a manager that they can go to with any problems and so on. And if there's anything they need support on, they will get that.
Okay, good. That's picking up on a couple of the comments in terms of how much support do you get from the more senior people when you're doing this work. I mean, Sam, you've had plenty of support. Yeah, you've been going to conferences, things like that. There's always someone there sort of supporting.
Oh yeah, and especially when you're first starting out, everything is always checked by a more senior person, so nothing's ever going out without like another set of eyes on it. And I always get good feedback, lots of comments on all of my work, and from those that I'm definitely growing more each time, and I can see how my writing is developing with every new piece of work I do.
Excellent. And Ella, you're a little bit further down the line, so I guess you're involved in mentoring some of the younger people.
Yes, I'm actually working very closely with a new associate medical writer at the moment, and on a couple of accounts. And so I review her work. She goes back. I'm careful to speak to her about it and give her a list of what could be potentially improved, and then she'll come back, we'll discuss it again, and I'll review it again. So I guess at the beginning there's two review processes rather than the standard one, so they're getting a lot of feedback.
And it's worth just highlighting the point, which naturally follows on from that as a writer you're going to need to be a little bit thick-skinned. In the early stage you're desperate for that support from your senior colleagues, but what you might not fully appreciate is there's a whole sort of system around you of approval and criticism and so on. If you've got your colleagues, you've got clients, you've got legal authors, etc. So you're sitting there writing a beautifully prepared piece of work. You've got to be prepared for that to be commented on by quite a lot of people. Is that right?
Yeah, I remember that from when I first started. It's quite difficult to start with, but yeah, exactly. You just have to remember that you're learning. It's a way of learning, and it's all criticism is good. You can learn from it.
Good, yeah, but it's something that we can't underemphasize there. Sorry,
and our senior reviewers are taught to be constructive about that as well. We're not going to crush anyone on what they've written. It's about supporting them and making them see the changes that are necessary. A lot of it can be personal interpretation, in this business. So we allow a bit of slack for that, but accuracy and so on, I go back to that. It has to be right, because from what Peter was saying, There's legal implications when it comes to a client, etc., etc. So it's all there for me.
Great. Can we switch to the sort of the account management client services side, Michelle? I mean, that's sort of, there's probably some of the big similarities, but what are the differences if you come in as how do you come in as an account exec? Is that where you start?
So yeah, project coordinator is the role. If you haven't got any MedComms experience, for me at least, account executive normally upwards, then account manager, etc. I normally expect to have some kind of medical communications experience already. So we have so our roles are not to do with writing as such. Obviously, we generally stay away from the scientific data, but we're all about the project management side of things, budgeting, keeping things moving, creating timelines, communications internally and externally with authors and clients. It's quite admin heavy. We have some internal systems that we have to keep up. Every week we're updating internal systems with timelines and invoicing and things like that. But also clients, we assist the clients a lot with their audit tracking databases. So data vision is a big tool that we use, making sure that all the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed from the legal kind of process point of view, following good publication practice, which overlaps with our editorial colleagues, obviously. So yeah, the main thing I was going to say, actually, and it's the same across both sides. Your most entry level, we don't expose you to clients. You can sit on client calls and things and listen, but we don't expect you to have direct communications with clients. So that in that way you're protected a bit. You can focus more on the internal things and getting up to speed with everything. And there's not that extra pressure of having to suddenly email a client or talk to a client, because that's another skill set really that you have to learn. So we try and stagger that developmental phase. I mean, to be honest, really a sign of your development is how quickly you're allowed to talk to a client. You know you're doing well if in the first 6 months we're fine with you opening your mouth on a call and saying something. Well, because it can be quite intimidating. I have to say most, like 90% of our clients are really lovely people. There's the odd one though you're always going to find, or external authors who, you just have to learn how to talk to people with that, ultimately, and this is what I was going to say with what Andrew was talking about as well, we are providing a service to other people. So when your work is reviewed internally, and my teams, we check everything internally, but then we're giving something to external authors and to clients, and ultimately they have their own views of what it should say or how it should look. And part of the process is, after you've learned how to write in things your own way or do the invoices, etc., is then learning the clients and the individual author's own preferences. And we develop very strong relationships with our clients and a lot of the authors as well. And that's one of the good things about having long-term relationships with clients. A lot of our clients we've worked with for like 10, 15, 20 years even.
Right.
Yeah. So.
Okay. Can I just move on a little bit? So I just want to cover a couple of quick points, because we are just going to keep a slight eye on the clock there. I think it's important to cover one of the questions that's come in. In fact, it's coming on both sides. I'm not sure if it's the same person. But I think I'm right in saying that or there certainly aren't many MedComms agencies that would say we have a medical information department. And it's been picked up by a couple of people. What is the difference? Give us a sense of what those two different groups are doing. I think that's going to be an important thing to cover. So again, Andrew, can I ask you to take the lead on that one? You need to unmute. That's it.
There we are. I'll speak to myself otherwise. And maybe Ella can help me out a wee bit here anyway. So yeah, we started this opportunity a couple of years ago because a lot of pharma companies, well, every pharma company has to have a medical information department to deal with inquiries from healthcare professionals about their marketed drugs. A lot of companies are now outsourcing that activity. So those inquiries are still the responsibility of the company, but they get other people to prepare the responses and then pass them back to the pharma company for them to give back to the original inquirer. So we were asked by a client to set that up, and we found out fairly quickly that the way that we should set it up was actually to use not writers as such, but MI specialists. So these are people often with a pharmacy background maybe a hospital background. They've perhaps come from the pharma industry and worked in medical information departments anyway. So they're able to do medical writing, but it's not the same as medical writing. It's a very prescriptive question that it's very formulaic. You know, I think typical inquiry might be a doctor says, look, I have a patient with cancer. Can I give him drug X? What, you know, I don't see it in the patient information. We do the research behind that, the literature research, and then go back and say, yes, it's perfectly fine for a patient with, you know, specific cancer to be treated by drug X. This is the evidence. But I go back, it's the responsibility then of the pharmaceutical company to pass that information back to the original inquirer. So we're providing that service for them.
Okay, so that is slightly unusual.
It is unusual.
It's not an unusual role. It's just unusual to find it within a MedComm.
Within a MedComms, absolutely. They're out there all the time in pharma industry. Every hospital will have an MI department within their pharmacy, and so on.
I'm going to ask two quick questions just to wrap it up, and then, but I'd emphasise for those of you online, we'll stop the recording as well, but we'll keep talking, so there's no problem. We can keep going. But I just wanted to choose two quick questions. One is, again, it's coming a couple of times, so just I'm really just looking to reiterate, I think, slightly with this one. Background is not medical sciences. I'm not looking for being a medical writer. What other options do I have? So we've covered off the client services, account management, there's medical information. What else would you say are there other roles that you would say, look at this within a MedComms environment? I guess there's editorial is an obvious one. I mean, some agencies, I don't know about yours, but some agencies will have an editing department. Do you have one at inScience?
Not in our group, but it'll be within Springer Healthcare. So the bigger company outside of our area. But again, you know, any inquiries to Rachel, Isaac, will, you know, that will feed up into Springer Healthcare. But
the sort of thing that you might look at as a general point across MedComms would certainly be the editing, and some companies are specifically looking for editors. Some companies obviously doing a lot of event type work, so there's event management, that sort of work. You're doing a certain amount of that, aren't you, at inScience?
Yeah, well, that's merged together with our existing team. So yeah, we kind of cover lots of things within the two client services, scientific services groups, including we have editorial assistant who does copy editing and things like that as well. So digital type of work is again merged in with the existing delivery team. So we don't have specialist departments as such to do those sorts of things anymore. We work with external agencies for typesetting and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Okay, but in-house design, in-house that sort of thing. Not at the moment. Not really. No. And digital expertise, I think you said, is something that. You have digital experts, but you don't have a digital sort of...
No, we outsource digital to specialists, but internally we have knowledge of digital projects enough to manage the projects and work with external companies.
So you bring in who you need to make the project.
Yeah.
So go on then. I'm going to finish with one question and bring Sam and Ella on this one, so the two bosses can close their ears a little bit. So we've been asked, what's the sort of work-life balance, as it were? So come on, we'll start with Sam and Ella to finish off here. Is it how hard do they work here? Come on.
I think it really does vary, because there's certain times that you get a project with a client that wants things in shorter time frames. There's less people working on it, maybe because other people are on holiday, and then you do have to put in extra hours. But I would say on the whole, I found it fine. And there is the occasional time where I have to work from home a little bit later. But I've not found it any problem at all. So I would say to people, don't worry about being overworked.
Okay, go on then, Ella. What's your take on that?
Yeah, from my point of view, I think it's really good, and I think you can more or less do your 9 till 5:30 day as standard. I saw a question come in about whether it's more flexible than academia. I would definitely say it is, because you have the option of working from home, which you don't once you become a bit more senior. It's very occasionally, you do have, exactly, if you're working from home, that you actually tend to work a bit later in the evening on projects, but generally good, really good.
Okay, having said that, let's just emphasize that it is a deadline-driven business. Things like conferences come up, or conference abstract deadlines, things like. I mean, I think it's very important people do understand that you don't go home at 5:30 if frankly the conference deadline's coming up and there's work to be done. So they've got to come in with a sort of an attitude that we can make this stuff happen.
Absolutely.
But they're not the sweatshops, you know. You're not there till midnight.
I think we're very proud actually to not be like that. I think for us it's much more important to have happy employees who are motivated, and to be honest, when you're not a sweatshop, you do get more out of people anyway. Not in terms of hours though. We very much try to make sure people go home when it's time to go home, or you know, if they've done extra hours, we try and let them pull that back at some point, you know, take some time off, whatever. But as the guys have said, like if it's conference season, or you know, you have to just do what you need to do. But we have loo time if you work weekends and things like that. And we're not very much not. We have a reputation of not being a sweatshop compared to other agencies.
Yeah, and maybe just to back that point up, we do have several people who've worked here originally, gone off to other agencies, and come back to inScience Communications.
Yeah. Probably 20-25% of our staff.
And that's quite. It's quite.
Must be saying something good about you.
Well, I'll leave it there.
Yeah. No, I think that's probably a very good point to leave it on. So for the purposes of this sort of formal session, I'm going to close it now. But I would emphasise to people who are online today that we will carry on talking. There's no problem about that. I would just say a huge thank you to the inScience guys. Thank you very much for joining in. The contact point is, and I've just lost it briefly, but it's Rachel.Isaac.
Do you want me to just put that onto screen?
I wouldn't at the moment. I would. It's in the chat screen. It's coming anyway. There you go. Okay, so that's where you go if you want some more information, guys. Okay. So on that note, big thanks to the panelists. Big thanks to all the attendees who stuck through it. But we'll carry on talking. Just now, I'm just going to stop the recording. So thank you very much, everybody. If you want to know more about MedComms, working in MedComms, come along to FirstMedCommsJob.com. You'll find loads and loads of information. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Say bye. Everyone say bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.